I'm fascinated by the Immanuel Quickley extension situation with all these guys extending now. Like Peyton Pritchard just got 10 million a year. Devin Vassell just got 30 some odd million a year. These are all his draft class. And the Quickley situation lingers. He finished second in Sixth Man of the Year voting last year. He is eligible right now for an extension going into his fourth season, the same one that, all the young rookies end up signing. And he's eligible for that extension until October 23rd, 2 weeks from today, the day that we're recording this. He's so important to the Knicks, but how the Knicks handle this is going to say so much about their future, because that's a team that's sitting and waiting to hunt a star. And what happens if you extend off a rookie scale contract, the extension doesn't actually kick in until next year. And because of all these quirks in the CBA and these trade rules and salary matching rules and all the complicated stuff that nobody needs to get into, it becomes really complicated to trade a guy who you've extended in that year between the extension kicking in and being on his rookie scale contract. So if Quickley were to sign an extension now, it'd be really difficult to salary match him over the next year if the Knicks wanted to trade him if a star rose up. But it might be easier to trade him come July 1st when that new big number comes in.
Guess what,
all
Fred?
Of a sudden,
to give you a nice comparison point, this was the exact way the Jordan Poole situation was being talked about last year at this time, where signing him to the extension, as you said, was going to make it harder for them to trade him, during the year, but that big number would kick in and would make him easier if, God forbid they would ever want to trade Jordan Poole come the next summer. And then they do, they obviously flip him for Chris Paul. So yeah, I mean, that's, and it does signal some stuff. What type of price range are we talking, do you think, though, for Quickley?
Well, so I did a poll of 15 or 16 different front office executives earlier in the summer to try to get a deal of his market. And most people said between 16 and 20 million a year. There's a new rule now that says that you can extend guys for 5 years, up to 5 years off their rookie scale deals. So maybe it ends up being in that 5 for 100 range. But like, you look at the Devin Vassell number, and I like Devin Vassell. He's really good, but I'm wondering how that affects the market. Because if I'm Immanuel Quickley and I just finished second in Sixth Man of the Year voting, I'm getting up there and being like, okay, well, I want 25 a year. I got to have something in that range close to that. If Peyton Pritchard, who was out of the Celtics rotation for a lot of last year and played 14 minutes a game, if he's getting 8 figures annually in an extension, like, then shouldn't the dude who was Sixth Man of the Year runner up, shouldn't he be getting significantly more than that? I don't think the Knicks are going to pay an exorbitant amount for him. Like, for example, they're paying Jalen Brunson 4 for 104. That's his contract. The Julius Randle contract was 4 for 106, 117 if you include other incentives. RJ Barrett was 4 for 107. I imagine the Knicks would want to keep it something in that range. Could you imagine, by the way, if just because of the way NBA economics work, that Immanuel Quickley is making more than Jalen Brunson next season? But
that's just the nature of it, though, right? I mean, that's with the revenue streams continuing to open up the way they are, none of this stuff is going to make sense. To stick with Slater's comp, the Tyler Hero effect, if you remember, Slater was kind of the thing the Warriors were looking at with Jordan's deal. Tyler got his deal. My dog apparently is unhappy. Apologies.
That was quite a week. I remember talking to Warriors people in Japan early in preseason, and it was like, do you think Hero is going to get done? That might complicate the Jordan conversations if Hero gets done. Hero does get done, they get back, punch happens, and it was just like this swirling event that obviously led to an extension that was probably a little pricier than it would have been if there was no Hero extension, no punch. But
yeah, I mean, that's the other part of it. Like, you mentioned the Jordan Poole contract. When I did that poll earlier this summer of just like execs, I brought up the Jordan Poole contract. I brought up the Tyler Hero contract, and those were in the realm of 30 million a year.
The Simons one, I remember, was a talking point back then too.
Simons one was a talking point. That was 100 million over 4 years. And I brought up those contracts, specifically Hero and even Poole, because that's kind of the role Quickley played. He's a different sort of player. He's more defensive minded, but he's a good scoring guard who finished who's second in Sixth Man of the Year voting. Like that's a comparable sort of situation. If I'm his agent, I'm looking at those contracts and saying, give me that. That's what the market says he's worth. And when I asked people around the league about that, their reaction was, yeah, but people don't really want those contracts now. Now that Poole contract is one you have to flip for, an aging, expensive Chris Paul, or the Hero one is one that's not going to get you Damian Lillard. Like, people don't want those contracts now. So I always find when there's like a market setting deal and then one side tries to use that as a market setter and the other side says, well, no, it's aged poorly enough and there's been enough time that it's no longer a market setter. I find those sorts of divides really interesting. I think there's a decent chance this gets done because I do think internally the Knicks believe that whenever that MVP caliber star for them to trade for comes up, I think they believe it's more likely that happens next summer or later than that it happens before this year's trade deadline, which kind of makes the points about Quickley being difficult to trade this season less, vital to the argument. And I would say it's more likely than not that it gets done, but you just don't know at this point. I think it's the most interesting rookie extension possibility that's left on the table right now.